Alrighty, hello everyone, it's Silver Kyle here, and today I'm going to go over my top 10 most anticipated movies for 2014. Now, with a list like this, a few of these, they're going to be guilty pleasures, because I think that it's easy to get excited and hyped for a guilty pleasure, because it's a movie that scratches an itch that nothing else can. And sometimes I don't even give them high ratings, it'll be like a 7 or a 6, but within that 6 out of 10 rating, that 6 was so good. Like, I very much enjoyed whatever they had to offer. So there's a few titles here that you're gonna be like, I wouldn't have expected somebody to be that excited for that kind of movie, but they are here, and I will explain each of these. Don't worry, there's nothing like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Transformers, but there's a few different choices here. There's not like any Oscar-worthy movies here. Another thing is that I haven't seen a lot of trailers for some of these movies. Like I'm excited for just the talent that's involved with these movies, and I'll explain that as we go along. Also, 2014 doesn't seem like the most exciting year for movies. 2013 was the same thing. There was only a few really big things like Star Trek Into Darkness, Iron Man 3, but it ended up being like quite a few sleeper hits that I didn't expect, like, you know, Captain Phillips, Gravity, Prisoners. Those were things I didn't really know a lot about until I finally saw them. And that's kind of what happens, but there's no big blockbusters. No, there's a few, but not really huge ones. Next year, 2015, Avengers 2, Star Wars, like a lot of big stuff that year. So anyway, let's go down with the list here. Number 10, X-Men Days of Future Past. Now this one barely makes the list, and it's only because of the amazing trailer. Also, the talent involved, like it's everyone from the original X-Men trilogy meeting up with First Class, like blending in together. That is awesome. I like that idea. I like that concept. I don't particularly like the way that they're portraying Bishop. Like, it kind of seems like a cheap version if they had like a TV series of the X-Men with real life actors. They would just throw in this random guy and kind of dress him up and kind of make him try to look like Bishop, but he doesn't really. I don't know. That's not how I imagine Bishop. Anyway, I also, Bryan Singer, he did the first two X-Men movies. They weren't the greatest. Like, X2 was probably the second greatest X-Men movie, behind First Class. First Class I thought was the best one, and First Class succeeded because it had a good script, good directing, I guess, and it's just, it had a crappy line of X-Men, but I really enjoyed that movie. Like, they didn't have Wolverine, they didn't have Cyclops, they didn't have, you know, Storm, Jean Grey, they didn't have any of those, Gambit, none of those needed to be in this movie. They just had an awesome story, and they showed new X-Men that I had no idea who they were, but I enjoyed it. And that is a testament to that movie, and I wish that they would have kept that director to do this one, but maybe he wouldn't have been able to get the entire cast for this. So either way, though, I'm quite excited, and I hope that Bryan Singer puts his A-game into this film. Next up is Dumb and Dumber 2. Now, I've wanted a sequel to this for the longest time. Dumb and Dumber is probably my favorite Jim Carrey comedy. I love Jim Carrey as a comedian. He's a guilty pleasure. Like, even his worst movies, I enjoy to a degree because of him. And Dumb and Dumber is my favorite version of him as a comedian. And I hope that it doesn't lose, you know, a lot of its oomph that it had in the first one. It was like a sleeper hit, and I hope that they continue kind of like, as long as it's kind of like the same humor as the first one, then I think it'll be good. Next up is Interstellar. Now this one I expected to be a lot higher on my list because it's Christopher Nolan, but this one I'm not crazy excited for because Matthew McConaughey, he's a good actor, don't get me wrong, but I like him more in comedic roles almost to an extent. Like, I loved him in with The Wolf of Wall Street. He's only in it for a brief amount of time, but he was hilarious in it. One of my favorite parts of Tropic Thunder was Matthew McConaughey's character, trying to get TiVo for Ben Stiller's character. I thought his character was hilarious. He's funny in those kind of roles, and he always brings a good performance, but nothing great. So that's why it's not as exciting for me. Also, I don't particularly like Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway. Nolan is amazing for picking like male actors, but female actresses, I find that he has such a hard time, in my opinion. Katie Holmes in Batman Begins, then Maggie Gyllenhaal in Dark Knight. I don't like those actresses. Anne Hathaway I don't particularly like. Jessica Chastain I don't particularly like. These are just my opinions, though. I do know that a lot of people do like those actresses, so that's kind of why it's bringing it down just a little bit. But I am still quite excited to see what's going to be happening here. Number 7 is Exodus, and that's with Christian Bale and Ridley Scott. It's about Moses, and I like Christian Bale and I like Ridley Scott for the most part. I think he's a really good director, and I'm excited for it. I haven't even seen a trailer for this, but I'm just that excited for Christian Bale movies nowadays. I think that he's really becoming a good actor. Ever since, you know, he did the Batman trilogy, he's able to kind of pick and choose the scripts that he wants to be in it, like American Hustle, and I loved his performance in that. Next up is The Hobbit, There and Back Again. Now, I wasn't as excited for the second Hobbit after it was done. I was just like, like the ending should have been like this huge cliffhanger ending, and it was a cliffhanger ending, but it didn't have like, I want to see what's going to happen here. I just felt anticlimactic, and I don't know. Cliffhangers for me are very climatic. I like them. They're even though they're like, oh my, they should make you go, oh my god, I need to see what's going to happen here. I didn't get that with The Hobbit Part 2, so I'm still excited for it, but just not as much. But I do want to see the epic conclusion to this movie, and I know what's going to be coming because I've read the book, so it's going to be cool to see everything that happens. Next up is another one that I've been quite excited for, and that would be How to Train Your Dragon 2. I loved the first one. Once again, kind of like with Dumb and Dumber, I hope that they can keep the magic of the first one alive in the second one. I don't think it's going to be as good because my favorite animated movie of all time is How to Train Your Dragon, so I don't think that they're going to be able to top that or even equal it. But I'm hoping that as long as it's close, I'll be happy. And it's funny, here I am saying all these excuses for like my top 10 movies. I'm excited for them, but I'm also kind of weary. And I think that that's kind of a good thing, because then if I just am so excited for all these movies, and then I watch them and they're not 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. So it's good to be excited, but also be realistic about some of these movies. Next up is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now we're getting into the list here that I'm really excited for. I'm not going to be making excuses. Captain America, the first movie, I didn't particularly like. It was okay. I liked Chris Evans as Captain America, and I liked him a lot in The Avengers. The Avengers is amazing. And the Winter Soldier, my goodness, as a standalone movie, I think this is the one I'm most excited for. More than Iron Man 1, more than Iron Man 3, more than Thor, anything like that. Winter Soldier just looks amazing. The amount of action that's going on. Captain America, Chris Evans, he's doing like an amazing job with this role this time. And I've just seen a few clips and a trailer. That's all I've seen, and it's just wow. I can already tell that this is going to be an amazing movie, and I cannot wait for this. Action-packed too. You see the SHIELD ship going down. Like it's, I cannot wait. The scene in the elevator. I cannot wait. I can't wait. Next up is Godzilla. Now, the 1998 Godzilla was crap. Everybody knows that. But this one looks like they're taking a very, more to the Godzilla roots. He looks like Godzilla from the original movies, but also with that American view of, kind of like Cloverfield. What would actually happen if this happens? Not to say that the Japanese Godzillas are cheap or anything like that, but they are kind of a lot cheesier, more B-movie type. This is A movie type, good director. I don't know. It looks like I don't even know who the director is, but it looks like they're taking a much stronger approach to this. Bryan Cranston, also in this movie. The guy from Kick-Ass is also in this movie. I'm quite excited for this, and I really like the first trailer. How they didn't even show Godzilla yet. And I think that's how you have to take this approach. Don't show Godzilla a lot. We just need to see him a few times every once in a while. Show a little bit more each time, but keep it a big secret. Like, show very far shots of Godzilla destroying the city, so you can only see a bit as if you were actually there. That's how I would like to see it. Kind of like Cloverfield. Next up, here is a huge guilty pleasure. This is the biggest, guiltiest pleasure on my list here. The Expendables 3. Both of those movies, the first ones, I gave about a 7 out of 10. And this one I think will be the same. Maybe a little bit better because of like Mel Gibson as the villain. Harrison Ford also being in this movie. I just can't. I love these movies. They hit a string from the 80s action movies, and it's just, there's nothing else out there that's kind of like this. I very much like Sylvester Stallone, Schwarzenegger as well. It's just a mix of a bunch of big action heroes that I like watching. I know that they're cheesy, but it's the kind of cheese that I want to see. Now, last but not least, my number one most anticipated movie of the year, and that is The Grand Budapest Hotel. I saw the trailer for this and I fell in love with it instantly. This is the director that has directed the Royal Thornberrys. Is that the cartoon? I don't know. Tenenbaums. That's what it is. Thornberrys is a cartoon. He also directed Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. This is a great director, and he always has really good scripts, an amazing cast. I have not seen this many actors and actresses in one movie in a long time. These are, huge actors. Ralph Fiennes, Bill Murray, Edward Norton, William Dafoe. Geez, there's so many that I saw in here, and they just kind of all show up at different times. What's his name? The guy from Jurassic Park 2 and 1, technically. Steve Goldblum. There's just so many actors in here, and I'm just like, wow, this movie looks amazing. I love the kind of humor that they're portraying in this movie, and I just cannot wait to see it. I think that this is also, it's coming out fairly early in the year, but I think that this is something that we could see being something that you could see at the end of the year in Oscars, for the script anyway, because I think that that's where it's really going to excel. So I cannot wait for that. So that's my top 10 list of movies that I'm most excited for this year. And I'd like to see what everyone else is excited for. You don't necessarily need to list the top 10, maybe just your top few, or if you do have a top 10, go right ahead. So thank you all for watching. You've been Bearded In.
Beardage.